that Deutsch?
It's Latvian in origin, but yeah, my family doesn't, as far as I know, my family doesn't really have much Latvian background, just for a name comes from, I guess.
What year are you here?
I'm a sophomore.
And where are you grown up? Where are you brought up?
At Wadena.
Cheese.
I'm standing here in the basement of the RFC with Garrison Keillor, host of the Prairie Home Companion show. How are you doing tonight, Garrison?
I'm doing well. We have more than almost 24 hours before we do our live broadcast, so that's plenty of time. Everything will fall apart several times before then, and we'll just put the pieces back together. And we're basically good people on the show. Young people. A choir, for example. University of Minnesota Morris Choir.
Yeah, this isn't the first time we've worked with a Morris Choir. It is us.
No, we've had them on once before, and I like them because, unlike most choirs, they're very game to try new things, and they don't insist on rehearsing something for 6 months before they sing. They're willing. They just open their mouths and they sing, and that's it. That's really what singing is about.
And you've been doing the show for a long time. You've been in many different areas around the country. What's it like doing a show in a smaller locale like Morris?
It's a beautiful locale, Morris, and we came up from Minneapolis on the bus today. And, we were glad to see the snow had not all melted. The fields were very lovely. It's a lovely rolling part of Minnesota before we come to the flat table of the prairie. And it's a lot like the part of Minnesota that I talk about in the stories on the show. I tell stories about a small town called Lake Wobegon. And so when I come up to Morris, I really am coming back to a part of the country that I have been telling stories about for years and do not know enough about. So I come here as a student.
Yeah, your Lake Wobegon stories are largely improvised on the air. What's it like having to come up with those things?
Well, you just need a beginning and an end, that's all. You need a simple beginning. You start out by talking about the weather. You know, it was really brutally cold about a week ago, and now it's warming up, and the snow is melting, and the ice on the lakes is no longer so reliable. From that, you can go in all sorts of directions, and then you need an ending. The ending of the story is always the same. That's the news from Lake Wobegon, where all the women are strong, all the men are good looking, and all the children are above average. And there you are. It's not that hard. You do the story, and you have your eye on a clock, which is on the stage, and you know when you're supposed to end. They tell you, you've got to be out by 46 minutes past the hour. You've got to be out by 47 minutes. You just watch the clock. When it's time to end, you just give the closing line, and that's it.
Yeah, and one of the things I really enjoy about listening to your shows is how old-timey it feels. I'm a big fan of old-time radio myself, and I can definitely hear some of the inspiration in shows like the Guy and Noir show, and especially some of the commercials you do. Were you are a big fan of old-time radio when you were younger? Is that what got you your inspiration for the show?
Well, I'm old enough to remember the last days of old-time radio. It lasted on into the early and mid 1950s. There were some shows that simply refused to accept the reality of TV, and they just stayed around. And I listened to the last of them. I enjoyed them a lot. Naturally, I was fascinated by television. When got a television set when I was in junior high school. But when it came time to decide what I wanted to do after I graduated from college, television was out on the coasts, and you had to go to Los Angeles or go to New York to do television. It was very little locally, except news, and the news was not really good. That is, the newscasts were not so good. But radio you could do anywhere, and I really wanted to stay in Minnesota. So I started this show. And with radio, you can be a writer. I've written the show that will be broadcast on Saturday. I've written it today, a little bit last night, Thursday night, mostly Friday morning. I'll rewrite it tonight. It'll be broadcast tomorrow. With television, you would write this, and it would be run through a mill of 8, 10, 15, 20 writers sitting in a room. Very little would be left of what you had come up with, maybe a few lines, and then they would do it 2 weeks from now, and it would be broadcast 6 months from now, and you wouldn't have the same feeling of accomplishment that you have in radio. Here we sat down and created this on a Friday. It was broadcast on a Saturday. People listened to it, and the audience was here. And then Monday you go off and do something. It's very nice.
And of course, with the advent of the internet and websites like Pandora that allow people to customize their own sort of radio stations, the whole landscape and future of the radio industry has changed. Has there been any modifications you've made to your show or strategies to accommodate that?
The internet, no. The internet is sort of a miracle, really, and it means that you hear from people who've listened to your show, and they've listened to it in Malaysia, and they're in Singapore, they're all over, they're in Uganda, and the show is broadcast in the UK on the BBC. It's broadcast in Australia and New Zealand. It's broadcast on American Forces Radio, the military channel. So it gets around, but the internet means that when you go off the air, you're not really off the air. It's there more or less permanently. When I started out on radio, you couldn't have anticipated this revolution in technology. Of course, the internet is crowded, with billions and billions of things. So I still believe in broadcasting, but it's great to get a postcard from somebody in a part of the world you've never heard of, and they've listened to stories about a small town in Minnesota.
Yeah. What advice would you give to anybody who might be interested in trying to have a career in broadcasting, a career in radio?
That's a very good question. I just think that it's a medium that is in the process of such change that you have to either anticipate change, or you have to do retro things that are so old that nobody remembers them, and so they seem like innovations. That's how this show started. It's a wonderful format. It's a live variety show. Has comedy, has music, and that's a great idea. I think that people just have to take a chance and go do what they love to do, and let the world find them, rather than go into large organizations and sit there and do work that you hate for a long time. I don't believe in a long apprenticeship, a long waiting period before you do what you love to do. You should do what you love to do and take a chance on it.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me here. I understand you're a very busy man, especially when it comes to preparing for the next day's show.
I'm a busy man, but I move slowly, and I have plenty of time. And maybe I'll put you in a story, maybe I'll put you in. A mysterious thin man in black with an interesting accent walking into Lake Wobegon. Where is he from? Who is he? What does he want? This could be good.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keillor. It's been a privilege.
You're welcome. Thank you.